Inevitable. A king dreamt. In the night, in his dream, he saw death. He became afraid. He asked, "What is the matter? Why are you making me so frightened?" Death said, "I have come to tell you that tomorrow by sunset I am coming, so get ready. It is just out of compassion so that you can prepare." The king was so shocked, his sleep was broken. It was middle in the night. He called his ministers and he said, "Find people who can interpret the dream, because time is short. Maybe it is true." Then the interpreters came, but as interpreters always have been, they were great scholars. They brought many big books and they started discussing and disputing and arguing, and the sun started rising, and it was morning, and an old man who was a very trusted servant to the king, he came to the king and he whispered in his ear, "Don't be foolish, these people will quarrel for ever and ever, and they will never come to any conclusion." Now everybody was trying that his interpretation was right, and the king was more confused than ever. So he asked the old man, "Then what am I supposed to do?" He said, "Let them continue their discussions. They are not going to conclude as so soon, and the sun will be setting, because once it has risen, the sunset is not very far. Rather, take my advice and escape. At least escape from this palace, be somewhere else. By the evening, reach somewhere as far away as possible." The logic looked right. The king had a very fast horse, the fastest in the world. He rushed, he escaped. Hundreds of miles he passed. By the time he reached a certain town, the sun was just about to set. He was very happy. He patted his horse and he said, "You did well. We have come very far." And when he was patting his horse, suddenly he felt somebody was standing behind him. He looked back, the same shadow of death, and Death started laughing. And the king said, "What is the matter? Why are you laughing?" Death said, "I was worried because you were destined to die under this tree, and I was worried how you would manage to reach. Your horse is really great. It did well. Let me also pat your horse. That is why I came in your dream. I wanted you to escape from the palace because I was very worried how it would happen, how you would be able to reach. The place looked so far away and only one day was left, but your horse did well. You have come in time. Wherever you go, you will find death waiting for you. In all the directions, death is waiting. In all the places, death is waiting. So, that cannot be avoided." Then, mind starts imagining some way to avoid it. The bundle of misery. There is an ancient Sufi story. A man was very much burdened by his suffering. He used to pray every day to God, "Why me? Everybody seems to be so happy. Why am only I in such suffering?" One day, out of great desperation, he prayed to God, "You can give me anybody else's suffering and I am ready to accept it, but take mine. I cannot bear it any more." That night he had a beautiful dream, beautiful and very revealing. He had a dream that night that God appeared in the sky and he said to everybody, "Bring all your sufferings into the temple." Everybody was tired of his suffering. In fact, everybody has prayed some time or other, "I am ready to accept anybody else's suffering, but take mine away. This is too much. It is unbearable." So everybody gathered his own sufferings into bags, and they reached the temple, and they were looking very happy. The day has come, their prayer has been heard, and this man also rushed to the temple. And then God said, "Put your bags by the walls." All the bags were put by the walls, and then God declared, "Now you can choose. Anybody can take any bag." And the most surprising thing was this, that this man, who had been praying always, rushed towards his bag before anybody else could choose it. But he was in for a surprise, because everybody rushed to his own bag and everybody was happy to choose it again. What was the matter? For the first time, everybody had seen others' misery, others' sufferings. Their bags were as big or even bigger. And the second problem was, one had become accustomed to one's own sufferings. Now to choose somebody else's, who knows what kind of sufferings will be inside the bag? Why bother? At least you are familiar with your own sufferings, and you have become accustomed to them, and they are tolerable. For so many years you have tolerated them. Why choose the unknown? And everybody went home happy. Nothing had changed. They were bringing the same suffering back, but everybody was happy and smiling and joyous that he could get his own bag back. In the morning, he prayed to God and he said, "Thank you for the dream. I will never ask again. Whatsoever you have given me is good for me, must be good for me. That is why you have given it to me." Lower and higher. This is a story, a Sufi story. It must be a story. It cannot be true, but it has some truth in it. A Sufi mystic who was known to be a little bit eccentric, a little crazy, was staying in a disciple's house, and he thought, "This man is known to do things which create unnecessary nuisance, and he enjoys it. So let him sleep in the basement, and we will lock the door, so in the night at least he cannot do anything." Suddenly, in the middle of the night, they heard great laughter coming from the roof. They rushed up, and they saw the saint rolling on the roof and laughing a belly laughter. He could not stop even to tell them what had happened. The host asked, "What was happened?" He said, "Strange things happened to me. I started falling upwards. You put me in the basement, and in the night I started falling upwards. I am here on the roof. That is why I am laughing, because this is not the normal way of falling, and you will think that I am being a nuisance." Perhaps the people who have fallen lower than the normal, if they had known that there were higher stages, may have fallen higher. Why choose the lower when you know? Begging from a beggar. There was a Sufi saint, Farid. Once the villagers asked him, "Farid, the great king Akbar comes to you so many times. Why don't you ask him to open a school for poor people in our village?" "We don't have a school." Farid said, "Good. So why should I wait for him to come? I will go." He went to Delhi. He was received. Everybody knew that Akbar respected him tremendously. Akbar was praying in his private mosque. Farid was allowed in. He went in. He saw Akbar praying. He was standing behind Akbar. He could hear what he was saying. With hands spread, Akbar was just finishing his prayer, his namaz, and he was saying to God, "Almighty, compassionate one, shower more riches on me. Give me a great kingdom." Farid immediately turned away. It was just the end of the prayer. So Akbar became aware that somebody had been and had gone away. He looked back, saw Farid going down the steps, then touched the feet of the Farid and asked, "Why have you come?" Because for the first time he had come. "And why are you going away?" Farid said, "I had come with the idea that you are rich, but listening to your prayer, I realized that you are still poor. And if you are still asking for money, for more power, then it is not good for me to ask for money, because I had come to ask for a little money to open a school in my village. No, I cannot ask from a poor man. You yourself need more. I will collect some from the village and give it to you. And so far as the school is concerned, if you are asking from God, I can ask from God directly. Why should I use you as a mediator? The story is reported by Akbar himself in his autobiography. He says, "For the first time I became aware that, yes, I am not yet rich enough. I am not yet dissatisfied with all this money. It has not given me anything, and I go on asking for more. Almost completely unconsciously, it is time for me to be finished with it." Ways of the Master. The Master represents only your real self. He speaks to you only to provoke the sleeping center of your being. Once the center is awake, the Master becomes silent with the disciple. There is a Sufi story about Bahauddin, one of the great Sufi mystics. He was living with his disciples, a few hundred disciples, in the desert. A few travelers passing by thought, just out of curiosity to see what was happening, so they went to the monastery and asked permission. They wanted just to see what was happening, and they could not believe their eyes. Hundreds of people were looking crazy. Somebody was dancing, somebody was shouting, somebody was talking to the sky, and it was all chaos. They said, "This man, Bahauddin, seems to be insane, and he was gathered all kinds of insane people here. What is going on?" And Bahauddin was sitting just in the middle of it all. They went away to their destination. When they were coming back again out of curiosity, they thought, "What is happening now? We should go and see." They went there. Bahauddin was still sitting in the same place, and all the disciples who had been shouting and looking crazy just a few months before were all sitting in silence, as if no one was there. The monastery was so quiet, so utterly quiet. Now they were even more puzzled. What has happened? Where has all that insanity gone? Not a single word was uttered by Bahauddin. Not a question was asked by the disciples. The spectators remained there for a few minutes, and then they went away. After a few years, they were again passing by, and they said, "Now let us see what is happening." They went there. Bahauddin was still sitting in the middle, and there was not a single disciple around. The whole monastery was empty. Now they could not contain their curiosity, more so because Bahauddin was alone. They thought, "Why not ask him?" So they asked, "When we first came a few years ago, they said all hell was loose, and we thought that you were mad and your followers were mad." "What was happening at the time?" Bahauddin said. "Catharis. They were throwing out the insanities that they had gathered in many, many lives because of you people, because of a repressive society, because of an insane society. I was allowing them to throw it out, to get rid of it." The people asked, "Then what happened?" "When we came back, they were all silent." Bahauddin said, "They threw out all that was inside, and nothing was left. They became sane. Hence, they were sitting in silence." Those people said, "We can understand these two things, but what has happened now?" "Where have they gone?" Bahauddin said. "Now they have gone to spread the message. Now there is no more for them to do. They have tasted the nectar. Now they have gone to the farthest corners of the earth to bring more crazy people, and next time when you come, you will again find the same thing happening, crazy people throwing out all their craziness." We should eat halwa. A famous story. Mullah Nasiruddin and two other saints went for a pilgrimage to Mecca. They were passing through a village. It was the last phase of their journey. Their money was almost finished, just a little bit was left. They purchased a certain sweet called halwa, but it was not enough for all. The three and they were too hungry. What to do? And they were not even ready to divide it because then it will not fulfill anybody's hunger. So everybody started bragging about himself that I am more important to existence, so my life has to be saved. The first saint said, I have been fasting. I have been praying for so many years. Nobody here present is more religious and holy than I am, and God wants me to be saved. So the halwa has to be given to me. The second saint said, Yes, I know. You are a man of great austerities, but I am a great scholar. I have studied all the scriptures. My whole life I have devoted in the service of knowledge, and the world doesn't need people who can fast. What can you do? You can only fast. You can fast in heaven. The world needs knowledge. The world is so ignorant that I cannot afford to miss me. The halwa has to be given to me. Mullah Nasiruddin said, I am not an ascetic, so I cannot claim any self control. I am not a great knowledgeable person either, so that too I cannot claim. I am an ordinary sinner, and I have heard that God is always compassionate to the sinners. The halwa belongs to me. They could not come to any conclusion. Finally, they decided that we all three should sleep without eating halwa and let God decide himself. So, whatsoever is given the best dream by God in the morning, that dream will be decisive. In the morning, the saint said, Nobody can compete with me anymore. Give me the halwa, because in the dream I kissed God's feet. That is the ultimate that one can hope. What greater experience can there be? The Pandit, the scholar, the knowledgeable person laughed and he said, That is nothing, because God hugged me and kissed me. You kissed his feet. He kissed me and hugged me. Where is the halwa? It belongs to me. They looked at Nasiruddin and asked, What dream did you have? Nasiruddin said, I am poor sinner. My dream was very ordinary, not worth even telling. But because you insist and because we have agreed, I will tell you. In my sleep, God appeared and he said, You fool, what are you doing? Eat the halwa. So I have eaten it, because how can I deny his order? There is no halwa left now. Self control gives you the subtlest ego. Self control has more self in it than anything else, but self mastery is a totally different phenomena. It has no self in it. Control is cultivated, practiced. With great effort, you have to manage it. It is a long struggle. Then you arrive at it. Mastery is not a cultivated thing. It is not to be practiced. Mastery is nothing but understanding. It is not control at all.